In 1975, Queen were about to make one of the strangest decisions in pop history. They wanted to release a song that was nearly 6 minutes long. It had no normal chorus. It began like a ballad, turned into an opera, exploded into hard rock, then drifted away into something almost dreamlike. It sounded impossible to market, impossible to edit, and according to many people in the music business, impossible to play on radio. But Queen believed in it. Freddie Mercury believed in it. And against all normal industry logic, that song became one of the most famous recordings ever made. This is the story of how Bohemian Rhapsody almost never happened. By the mid-1970s, Queen was successful, but they were not yet untouchable. They had built a loyal following, they had hit singles, they had ambition, but they were also under pressure. Their fourth album, A Night at the Opera, needed to move them from being an exciting rock band into something much bigger. The stakes were high. Queen did not want to make a safe record. Freddie Mercury, Brian May, Roger Taylor and John Deacon wanted something grand, something theatrical, something that ignored the normal rules of pop music. Freddie Mercury had been carrying pieces of a song around in his mind for some time. Different sections, different moods, different musical worlds. A piano ballad, an operatic middle section, a heavy rock explosion. To most songwriters, those ideas might have become 3 different songs. Freddie saw them as one. That was the genius of Bohemian Rhapsody. It was not written like a conventional single. It was built like a miniature musical drama. The problem was that nobody knew whether it would work. Not even the band knew exactly how it would sound until the pieces were assembled in the studio. Recording began in August 1975 at Rockfield Studios in Monmouth, Wales. Rockfield was not a glamorous Hollywood-style studio. It was a residential studio on a working farm. But for Queen, it became the place where one of the most ambitious recordings of the decade started to take shape. The song demanded huge patience. The band worked through section after section. Piano, bass, drums, guitar, vocals, then more vocals, then even more vocals. The operatic section was the most difficult part. Freddie Mercury, Brian May and Roger Taylor layered voice upon voice, building the sound of a choir from just 3 singers. In some parts of the recording, there were around 180 separate vocal overdubs. That kind of production was extraordinary for the time. Remember, this was the mid-1970s. No digital editing, no instant computer correction, no unlimited tracks. Every ambitious idea had to be built physically on tape. The more overdubs they added, the more complicated the recording became. Tape had limits, studios had limits, budgets had limits, patience had limits, but Queen kept going. They were creating something that did not really belong to one genre. It was rock, it was opera, it was theater, it was absurd, it was serious, it was ridiculous, it was brilliant. And that was exactly the problem. When the song was finished, Queen had something extraordinary, but they also had a major commercial problem. How do you sell a 6-minute single to radio? At the time, pop singles were usually much shorter. Radio stations preferred songs that fitted neatly between adverts, news bulletins, and presenter links. Bohemian Rhapsody did not fit neatly anywhere. It was too long, too strange, too unpredictable. There was serious concern that radio stations simply would not play it. The obvious solution was to edit it down, cut the opera section, shorten the arrangement, make it more radio-friendly. But cutting Bohemian Rhapsody was not like trimming a normal song. Its power came from the journey. Remove one section and the whole thing starts to collapse. The song worked because it was excessive, because it refused to behave, because it kept changing shape. Queen did not want to compromise it. Freddie Mercury certainly did not want to compromise it. And this is where the story becomes legendary. DJ Kenny Everett, one of the most influential radio personalities of the time, heard the track and loved it. The story goes that he was told not to play it. So naturally, he played it again and again. Whether every detail of that story has become polished by rock mythology over the years is almost beside the point. What matters is that radio exposure helped prove something the record industry doubted. People did want to hear it. They did not switch off because it was long. They listened because it was unlike anything else. That is the great lesson of Bohemian Rhapsody. Sometimes audiences are more adventurous than the industry thinks. The song was released as a single in October 1975, and instead of being rejected, it became a phenomenon. It climbed to #1 in the UK, then stayed there for 9 weeks. 9 weeks, for a song that supposedly should not have worked on radio, for a song with no conventional chorus, for a song that moved from intimate piano ballad to mock opera to hard rock and back again. It became Queen's first UK #1 single, and it changed their career forever. But Bohemian Rhapsody did not just succeed because it was unusual. Unusual songs fail all the time. It succeeded because beneath all the theatrical excess, it had emotional force. It felt personal, mysterious, dramatic. Listeners did not need to understand every line or every reference to feel something. In fact, part of its power is that it refuses to explain itself fully. People have debated its meaning for decades. Some hear guilt, some hear confession, some hear fantasy, some hear tragedy, some hear Freddie Mercury building a world where emotion matters more than literal explanation. And perhaps that is why the song lasts. It gives listeners room to enter it in their own way. Then there was the video. Queen could not easily perform the whole song live on television in the way the record sounded, so a promotional film was created. It was not the first music video, but it became one of the most important. The dark lighting, the 4 faces, the dramatic visual style, the sense of mystery, it helped turn the song into an event. In later decades, music video would become central to pop culture. But Bohemian Rhapsody showed how powerful a carefully made promotional film could be. The song would return to #1 again in 1991 after Freddie Mercury's death. A new generation discovered it again in 1992 through Wayne's World, then again through the Queen musical, then again through the Bohemian Rhapsody film. And now, decades later, it still feels impossible to ignore. That is the mark of a truly great recording. It does not stay locked in the year it was made. It keeps finding new listeners. So why did Bohemian Rhapsody almost never happen? Because almost everything about it argued against commercial success. It was too long, too strange, too expensive, too difficult to perform, too hard to categorize, too risky for radio, too unlike the singles around it. But those supposed weaknesses became its strengths. The length made it epic. The structure made it unforgettable. The opera section made it unique. The risk made it legendary. Bohemian Rhapsody is a reminder that some of the greatest moments in music happen when artists ignore the obvious advice. Make it shorter, make it simpler, make it safer. Queen did the opposite, and the result was not just a hit single, it was a song that changed what people thought a rock record could be. Every great song has a story, and few stories are greater than the 6-minute gamble that became Bohemian Rhapsody. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the stories behind the songs for more music history, forgotten details, and the moments that shaped the records we still love today. Thanks for watching.